From the haunted forest in the north to the Dorne in the south, the Iron Throne is a prize coveted by all. A monstrous creation forged from the fire of Balerion the Black Dread is a possession that all desire, yet few attain. It's hard to get and much harder to keep. Its conception sets in motion a new age of Westeros, and its significance in the world of Game of Thrones cannot be overstated. In this video, we'll delve into the violent origins, history, and legacy of the Iron Throne. Its story is as brutal as its name, a legacy that weighs heavily on the ones who carry it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin. The Seat of Power, a look at the Iron Throne. Vicious in its appearance and nature, the Iron Throne is much more than just a fancy chair for the ruler. It's a symbol of sovereign power over all of Westeros. He who sits on it is the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and is conferred upon the titles of the King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. The Iron Throne is situated on a tall platform in the Great Hall of the Red Keep, from where Westeros' fate is commanded. There are steep iron steps to reach it. The King's small council has a seat at the bottom of the steps. The throne itself is quite a grotesque thing to look at, with jagged swords protruding from all sides. In a 2014 interview, writer George R.R. Martin described it. "I said repeatedly the Iron Throne is huge. It towers over the room like a great beast. And it's ugly. It's asymmetric. It's put together by blacksmiths, not by craftsmen and experts in furniture manufacturing. You have to walk the iron steps, and when a king sits on it, he's like 10 feet above everybody else. He's in this raised position looking down on everyone." HBO's Game of Thrones featured a much tamer version of the chair, which looked little like the steel-fangled abomination of Martin's writing. The tides of time stripped its glory. In Season 3, Littlefinger even goes as far as to mock the Iron Throne, making us question the illusion of absolute power that it creates. When Lord Varys describes it as 1,000 blades taken from the hands of Aegon's fallen enemies, forged in the fiery breath of Balerion the Dread, Littlefinger is quick to refute that by saying there aren't 1,000 swords. In fact, there aren't even 200. He even says that the legend of the Throne of 1,000 blades, taken from the hands of Aegon's fallen enemies, and forged in the fiery breath of Balerion, is a story that they've agreed to tell each other over and over, until everyone forgets that it's a lie. But is it a lie? Littlefinger's claim is disputed in the spin-off show, House of the Dragon, where we see the throne in its violent glory nearly 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. Here, not just the throne, but the path leading to it is littered with sharp swords, creating a barrier between the one who sits on it and the rest of the world. It's also symbolic of the dynasty of House Targaryen, which protected its heritage and purity of bloodline by following the old Valyrian custom of incestuous marriages. Although it's an ugly thing to look at, no one can deny its allure where families turn against their own blood for a taste of power. Ironically, the one who commands all this power is never truly safe from scheming and betrayal of those closest to him. In Game of Thrones, we see Robert Baratheon's death, plotted by none other than his queen wife, Cersei. After the death of Jon Arryn, Robert's Lord Hand, Ned Stark is summoned to King's Landing to succeed him. In his tenure as Hand, Ned quickly realizes that his mentor Jon was actually murdered by the Lannister twins. And the reason is because Jon found out about Cersei and Jaime's illicit affair, and how none of Cersei's children were fathered by Robert. Ned confronts her and advises her to flee to safety with her kids, as Robert's wrath will follow them after he unveils the truth. During this time, Robert is on a hunt where he's conveniently killed by a wild boar. Coincidence? We think not. Ned's revelation would have put Joffrey's inheritance into question. So, ever cunning, Cersei had her husband killed, which she even boasts in Season 6 to Septonella. "I killed my husband because it felt good to be rid of him." But even Joffrey Baratheon, for whom his mother went on a murder spree, is not spared the misfortune of inheriting the throne. Joffrey is evil incarnate as king. Every day he just grows more unhinged. So call it karma or a twist of fate that his death was as cruel and revolting as Joffrey's personality. On his wedding day to Marjorie Tyrell of Highgarden, Lady Olenna poisons him, which leads him to turn purple and choke on his own blood. The Purple Wedding, a title not without merit. If Cersei was right about one thing, it was that when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There's no middle ground. This legacy of death is also depicted in the spin-off series, House of the Dragon, which is based on Martin's Fire and Blood. The entire first season of House of the Dragon sees a power struggle between Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower's firstborn Aegon. Rhaenyra was King Viserys' firstborn and only surviving heir with late wife Queen Aemma. Due to the absence of a male heir, tradition dictates Viserys to name his younger brother Daemon as his heir. But Daemon's brash behavior and disrespect for his older brother forces Viserys' hand, and for the first time in Westeros history, he names a female heir. However, after Viserys marries Alicent Hightower and has not one but 2 sons, Rhaenyra's claim is disputed by many. tyranny, and after the death of King Viserys, the realm is torn in two, popularized by the series as the Greens and the Blacks, who plunged into a war called the Dance of the Dragons. It's quite simple. Throne means power, and in a world where fortune only favors the powerful, everyone hungers for it. Some want it for vengeance, some want it to rise above others and rule, some feel entitled to it, and some want to bring justice to the realm. There are as many contenders as there are reasons. Robert Baratheon's death has everyone in the realm clamoring for their chance. Like bloodhounds on a hunt, the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, under the command of Tywin, want to put Joffrey on the throne and use him as a puppet to keep all the power to themselves. Robert's brothers hold beliefs similar to Eddard Stark, that Cersei's bastards have no claim. Both Renly and Stannis Baratheon gather arms to fight for their claim. In the north, Robb Stark, supported by the Bannermen to avenge his father, who was beheaded by Joffrey, and free his sister from the Red Keep. But that's not all. He's also fighting for the emancipation of the North. The Northmen want to restore it to its glory from the old days. In Essos, the last living Targaryen prince Viserys wants to reclaim the throne for his family and avenge the death of his father, the Mad King Aerys Targaryen. Viserys marries off his younger sister Daenerys to a barbaric Khal Drogo. In return for getting him to march toward Westeros with his Dothraki army, he seeks the crown, which is his birthright. Even Lord Peter Baelish is not immune to ambition, and sticks to the small council like a parasite, inching his way to the throne little by little. Hundreds of years pass. The rich history of the throne recedes to the Book of the Maesters, its authenticity put to question, but some of the blades still remain sharp as ever, an indication that all the stories of the throne will be written in blood. Forged by a conqueror, the origins of the Iron Throne. Hailing from the Valyrian freehold, the Targaryens came to Dragonstone before the catastrophic doom that destroyed Valyria. They were one of the last Valyrian families, and were the only remaining house which had Valyrian dragons. 112 years after the doom, Aegon the Conqueror set out to conquer the 6 independent kingdoms of Westeros, and unite them under the Targaryen banner, and become the first Targaryen king. It's interesting to note that the Targaryens weren't even one of the strongest households in Old Valyria, but in the New World, with the might of their dragons, they were an unchallengeable force. This was the genesis of the strong dynasty that ruled for 300 years. After his victory, Aegon forged his throne with 1,000 swords of his fallen enemies. His dragon Balerion, the Black Dread's fiery breath, melted them together to form the Iron Throne, thus justifying the words of the House Targaryen, fire and blood.
King of the Andals and the Rhoynar and the First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm. Hail, King!
Legacy on the Iron Throne. The seat of power remained with the Targaryens for 300 years, from Aegon the Conqueror to Aerys II, the Mad King, who was assassinated by Jaime Lannister, his Kingsguard. Following this, Robert Baratheon was crowned the reigning monarch. Robert's death saw his sons Joffrey and Tommen going after the seat, but neither managed to keep it for long. Here's a look at some of the rulers who sat on the Iron Throne. Aegon Targaryen I. Aegon the Conqueror was the first to sit on the Iron Throne. He ruled with his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys, with whom he wed and fathered children. A true blood of the dragon, Aegon ushered in a golden age for the Targaryens. Aenys Targaryen I and Maegor Targaryen I. After Aegon's death, his legacy was continued by his sons, Aenys and Maegor. His firstborn Aenys, with Queen Rhaenys, was a sensitive man with an interest in astronomy and alchemy, but an unfit ruler who didn't possess the strength or tenacity required to keep the realm under control. He was indecisive and weak, which led to many uprisings in his short time as king. Only 5 years after his ascension, he died. During the time of Aenys' death, his stepbrother Maegor was in exile. Maegor's first marriage to Cerys Hightower bore him no heirs, so he declared her barren and took another wife, Alis Holloway. Since the Septons refused to get them married, Maegor married Alis in the old Valyrian custom. This angered the people of faith, and Maegor was banished by King Aenys. However, after his death, the Dowager Queen Visenya flew to Pentos to bring her son back. Maegor returned promptly and claimed the throne, disputing Aenys' son Prince Aegon's claim to the succession. Maegor did not share the soft virtues of his brother. Maegor's rule was one of tyranny, which justified his moniker of Maegor the Cruel. He took his father's mighty beast, Balerion, because he felt no other dragon was worthy of him. Maegor was a force to be reckoned with, but he lacked the diplomacy and temperance that are required of a king. He was the kind to raise swords where words could bring solution. His 6-year regime was riddled with conflicts with the Fate, who were against his polyamorous marriages to 6 women. Despite marrying 6 women, Maegor failed to have an heir of his own.
Jaehaerys called the Great Council to prevent a war being fought over his succession.
Jaehaerys Targaryen I. After the death of Maegor, the next Targaryen king was his nephew, Jaehaerys Targaryen, the son of Aenys. The longest to sit on the Iron Throne, Jaehaerys' reign lasted 50 years. He was known for his just ways, and the title of the Wise King was conferred on him. The House Targaryen was at its pinnacle of glory and strength during his time. Jaehaerys ushered in an age of peace and prosperity. He provided stability to the entire realm. However, both his sons died before him, leaving the old king with two potential heirs: Rhaenys, the daughter of his firstborn son, and Viserys, the eldest of his second-born son. Upon approaching the end of his days, Jaehaerys feared that his death would throw the realm into chaos, with the succession unclear, so he called a great council at Harrenhal and named Viserys his heir, thus putting into motion the events unfolding in the House of the Dragon.
10 years you've been king, and yet not once have you asked me to be your hand.
Viserys Targaryen. The chosen heir of Jaehaerys, Viserys was known as the Peaceful King. He had a deep passion for Valyrian history and spent his time building a model of old Valyria in his chambers. He was also the last dragon rider of the mighty Balerion. Viserys was a just king, but his brother Daemon often challenged him, calling him weak and vulnerable to the guile of the small council. He spends his reign being coerced by his hand, the self-righteous Otto Hightower, who manipulates Viserys during his vulnerable moments by appealing to his emotional side. Viserys is unable to have a male heir with his wife Aemma, leaving Daemon as the heir, but Otto Hightower coerces Viserys into naming his firstborn Rhaenyra the new heir to the Iron Throne, setting a new precedent. The cunning of Hightower doesn't stop there. He gets his daughter Alicent married to Viserys to keep his grip steady on power. Alicent bears Viserys a son, Aegon, who many see as the true heir because he's male. However, Viserys dearly loves his daughter and defends her claims as he grows old and weak. He remains strong by her side as long as he lives, but his death propels the realm into the bloodbath King Jaehaerys wanted to avoid. On his deathbed, Viserys is talking about Aegon the Conqueror in his dream, the Song of Fire and Ice. Unaware of this, Alicent thinks that Viserys wishes their son Aegon to be the successor, the prince who was promised. Viserys' last words, "You must do it," gives Alicent the permission to do what she had long wanted: usurp the throne. Blood stands against blood in an epic battle, the Dance of the Dragon. Rhaenyra Targaryen. In Martin's Fire and Blood, Rhaenyra does take the Iron Throne from her brother, but her reign is short-lived, earning her the moniker of the Half-Year Queen. Rhaenyra meets a tragic end when her half-brother Aegon II kills her at Dragonstone, feeding her to his beast. However, we're yet to see how true the creator of House of the Dragon will stick to the source material. In Season 2, Episode 4, King Aegon is scorched in a battle with Princess Rhaenys. His life is hanging by a thread, and Aemond, his brother, steps up to be the regent. While Rhaenyra is the chosen heir, she has a long journey before she can claim the throne. What will become of her in the series? Only time will tell.
Burn them all!
Where's my sister?
Aerys Targaryen II. The throne remained with the Targaryens for over 150 years after the Dance of the Dragon, and Aerys Targaryen II, popularly known as the Mad King, was the last of them. Aerys started as a fine ruler, but with time, lost his grip on reality and grew paranoid each day. He was taken prisoner during the defiance of Duskendale. Duskendale was a port with dwindling trade because of the prosperity of King's Landing. Denys Darklyn, Lord of Duskendale, refused to pay taxes and demanded a new charter for Duskendale. King Aerys was invited by the Lord to Duskendale to resolve matters where he was held hostage for 6 months. Aerys saw some horrors in his imprisonment and came out a paranoid man who took befitting revenge from his captors. But his lust for vengeance didn't end there. Lord Darkling's wife, Sarala, faced the worst of it, as she was first mutilated and then burned alive. Over time, Aerys grew suspicious of those in his court and appointed Lord Varys as his Master of Whispers to know who was scheming against him. He became exceedingly violent and unstable, giving out exceedingly harsh punishments. His son Rhaegar was accused of abducting Lyanna Stark, Ned's older sister. The truth was, Lyanna and Rhaegar were lovers and had eloped together to get married. Lyanna's brother Brandon came to court to take his sister back, but was captured instead. So Rickard Stark came before the king to free his children and take them back. But the Mad King saw fit to burn him alive in his court and have Brandon executed. Aerys' insanity and cruelty destabilized the realm, causing the houses Baratheon, Stark, and Arryn to unite forces to take him down. Aerys also developed an obsession with fire and plotted to burn the city with wildfire, believing that he would survive and rise from it as a dragon. He had a master plan to blow up all of King's Landing and started collecting wildfire in the tunnels underneath the city with the help of a pyromancer. This caused Jaime Lannister, his Kingsguard, to slit his throat, and he became known as the Kingslayer. However, Aerys' wildfire didn't go to waste. It was used by Tyrion to protect King's Landing from Stannis Baratheon's naval fleet, and later used by Cersei when she blew up the Sept of Baelor, starting her own Mad Queen arc.
7 kingdoms to rule! 1 king, 7 kingdoms! Do you think honor keeps...
Robert Baratheon. After the Targaryens, the House Baratheon assumed the royal title, with Robert as the first king. Although a great swordsman, Robert struggled to be a good king. He became careless, languishing with hunting, drinking, and whores. He fathered many bastards in King's Landing. His marriage to Cersei Lannister was merely a political affair, because the woman he really loved, Lyanna Stark, was dead. Cersei bore 3 children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, during the course of their marriage. But they were conceived by the incestuous affair she had with her brother Jaime Lannister. Robert was plotted against by his own queen and assassinated while he was away on a hunt.
Kill him! Kill all of them, I command it!
Commander!
Joffrey Baratheon. Joffrey Baratheon was the next in line for the throne. His reign was short-lived. He was a cruel and violent ruler who enjoyed tormenting others. He was drunk on power and volatile, leading people to call him Aerys III. Joffrey's claim was wildly disputed, and the lords raised their banners to rally against him. He was poisoned on his own wedding day. After Joffrey's demise, Tommen was made king, but he was only a placeholder. It was Tywin who did the ruling bit. A throne of blades, deadly demise, or cursed seat. The throne seems to have an almost mystical quality to it, and it's said to judge those who sit upon it. It's the nature of the throne to be hurt. Aegon did not make it to be comfortable. Its back is fangled, never allowing the king to rest easy, as Aegon intended it to be. In House of the Dragon, the brutal nature of the chair is portrayed when King Viserys keeps cutting his hand on its many blades. He even loses 2 fingers to the infection. In the books, Queen Rhaenyra wore a chainmail suit to protect herself, but still ended up getting injured on the throne. It's long believed that the throne rejects those that it deems unfit by cutting them. Aerys' many unhealed scabs from the throne cutting him are testimony to the same. He was even called the Scab King. Not only is the throne punishing, but it has even gone as far as to kill one of them. Maegor the Cruel was found dead on the Iron Throne, covered in blood with his wrists slashed. Speculations arose for the cause of his death. Some said it was a Kingsguard. Some said he committed suicide, but there were people who believed that it was the throne itself that murdered Maegor to put an end to his cruelty.
Kind, Your Grace.
It's the king's hand you're addressing, not the king. The king is...
Can anyone sit on the throne? The Iron Throne has its customs and traditions. Not just anyone can sit on the throne. Only the king, the one with the rightful claim, can. However, in exceptional circumstances, in the absence of a king, the Hand can assume the position of a proxy ruler. Ned Stark, the undisputed hero of Season 1 of Game of Thrones, sits on the chair as Robert Baratheon's Hand, when the king himself is on a hunt. So does Tywin Lannister when he's the king's hand. Who can forget Tywin putting Tyrion, the son he loathes, to trial in one of the series' most iconic and well-written episodes, called The Laws of Gods and Men. The throne may have its rules, but what are rules if they're not meant to be broken? And the ones who do it are none other than the siblings and lovers Cersei and Jaime Lannister. Jaime sat upon the Iron Throne after he slayed the Mad King, while Cersei took it after she burned down her enemies, along with Tommen's wife Queen Margaery Tyrell, causing him to take his own life. A fiery end. Drogon melts the Iron Throne. Violent beginnings often have violent ends. After a long journey, starting from Pentos, Daenerys Stormborn finally reaches the gates of King's Landing to take what is rightfully hers. The sheer magnitude of her struggle has hardened her heart. When she finally reaches the gates of King's Landing, Cersei executes Missandei, Dany's loyal advisor and close companion. Daenerys is blinded by rage. Following Missandei's last wish, Dracarys, she rides atop Drogon and burns down King's Landing in the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones. She finally wins the throne by fulfilling the legacy of her late father, the Mad King. In a sick twist of fate, the much-coveted Iron Throne meets with its end when Daenerys Targaryen is slain by none other than her lover Jon Snow, to stop her from destroying all of Westeros. Jon also turns out to be a Targaryen. Aegon Targaryen, son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. Who could forget that big reveal of the true heir to the throne? Drogon, the fiery beast, is overcome with grief and rage upon the death of his mother and sees the throne as the culprit. So he brings upon it a fiery vengeance and melts down every blade, keeping it together. Ultimately, all that's left is molten steel. The Iron Throne is no more, a fitting end to the cycle of bloodshed. Marvelous verdict. It's the seat of power over the Seven Kingdoms. It's the ultimate prize. It's a big chair made of steel, as Daemon puts it succinctly in Episode 3 of House of the Dragon. Jokes aside, the throne is the heart of Martin's rich world. The highest seat in Westeros, the throne is a wicked thing. Its ambition has turned brother against brother. Made with swords of the slain and a fiery dragon's breath, the path to the throne is littered with bodies, dying either in its service or in the ugly ambition to attain it. It makes no distinction in destruction. Royals, noblemen, knights, small folk, all have been slaughtered equally. But in the end, when it's reduced to ashes, it also means the end of Westeros as it was known. Its demolition is almost cathartic. Winter is over, and a new spring begins with a new king, Brandon Stark. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.